The massive Imperial starship hung silently in the darkness beyond Mars, its metallic hull reflecting the distant sunlight. On its bridge, Admiral White stood with his hands clasped behind his back, studying the blue planet displayed on the main screen. His dark uniform, decorated with golden pins showing his rank, seemed to absorb the soft light from the ship's controls. "Another primitive world," said Captain Reed, his second in command. "They haven't even colonized their own moon properly." Admiral White's expression remained neutral, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "Look closer, Captain. Notice anything unusual about their development curve?" The captain moved to a nearby console and pulled up Earth's technological progress charts. His eyes widened as he processed the data. This can't be right, sir. According to these readings, they went from basic flight to space travel in less than 70 years. Precisely. The Admiral's voice carried a hint of concern. No other species we've encountered has shown such rapid advancement. They're progressing at an alarming rate. The bridge fell silent as other officers turned to listen. The only sounds were the soft peeps and hums of the ship's equipment. "Pull up their current military capabilities," ordered the Admiral. A series of images appeared on the main screen. Nuclear weapons, primitive energy shields, basic space fighters, and early quantum communication systems. Nothing that could threaten the Empire, but the speed at which humans had developed these technologies was troubling. "Their understanding of quantum mechanics is particularly concerning," said the ship's chief scientist, Dr. Green. "At their current rate of progress, they could develop weapons that might actually harm our ships within a decade." Admiral White nodded slowly. "The Empire cannot allow that to happen. We've seen what becomes of species that advance too quickly. They become unpredictable, dangerous." He turned to face his crew. "We must act now, while we still hold the advantage." The Admiral pressed a button on his command chair, opening a channel to Imperial High Command. The holographic image of Grand Commander Stone appeared before them, his aged face stern and attentive. "Report, Admiral." "Sir, Earth represents a significant future threat. I recommend immediate action to ensure they don't become a problem. Their technological growth is unprecedented." The Grand Commander's hologram flickered slightly as he considered this information. "Casualties?" "Minimal, if we act now," replied Admiral White. "Their defenses are still primitive by our standards. We could disable their military capabilities with targeted strikes, leaving their infrastructure intact. The Empire would gain a productive new world with minimal loss of life." "Very well," said the Grand Commander. "You have authorization to proceed. Send in the observation fleet first. Follow standard protocol." The transmission ended, and Admiral White turned to his crew. "Launch the scout ships. I want detailed scans of every military installation on that planet. We'll show them the mercy of a swift conquest." Within hours, dozens of smaller ships detached from the Imperial fleet. They moved through space like silent predators, their advanced stealth systems making them invisible to Earth's early warning systems. Or so they thought. Deep within a mountain complex on Earth, a young radar operator stared at his screen in disbelief. The new quantum detection system, only installed last month, was picking up strange signals. He quickly alerted his superiors. Within minutes, military bases worldwide began reporting similar readings. Something big was out there, watching them. Emergency meetings were called in every major capital. For the first time in human history, all nations faced a threat that made their differences seem insignificant. As the sun set over the Pacific Ocean, Admiral White watched the scout ships take their positions around Earth. He allowed himself a small smile, confident in the Empire's overwhelming superiority. Soon, this world would join the thousands of others under Imperial rule. But in his satisfaction, he missed a crucial detail. The humans had already detected his fleet, something that should have been impossible with their level of technology. And in labs and military bases across Earth, scientists and soldiers were preparing for a confrontation that would change the galaxy forever. The Empire had made its first move. They thought Earth would be an easy conquest, another primitive world to add to their collection. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The United Nations emergency session was unlike anything in human history. Representatives from every nation sat in tense silence as Dr. Miller walked to the podium. The old scientist's hand shook slightly as he adjusted his glasses, but his voice remained steady. "Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to share will sound impossible," he said, looking around the room. 2 hours ago, our quantum research team made a discovery that changes everything we thought we knew about human capabilities. The main screen behind him lit up with complex data patterns. These readings aren't from the alien ships. They're from us, from every human being on Earth. In the front row, General Roberts leaned forward, his decorated uniform catching the light. "Explain it in simple terms, Doctor." Dr. Miller nodded. "Every human on Earth is generating a quantum field. We never noticed before because we didn't have the right equipment. But the alien presence somehow triggered something in us. It's like our bodies know something our minds don't." The room erupted in whispers. The Russian representative stood up. "Are you saying humans have some kind of hidden power?" "Exactly," Dr. Miller replied. "And it's growing stronger by the hour. The alien's presence is like a key, unlocking something that's been dormant in our DNA for thousands of years." On the massive screens around the chamber, satellite images showed the alien scout ships moving into attack positions. Time was running out. The Chinese military commander spoke next. "How does this help us against their advanced weapons?" Dr. Miller pressed a button, and new images appeared. "We've detected energy patterns from their ships. Their weapons are based on conventional physics. Advanced, yes, but still following the basic rules of space and time. What we're discovering about human capabilities, it operates on completely different principles." The UN Secretary General raised his hand for silence. "Dr. Miller, what are you suggesting?" "I suggest we send them a warning. One warning." The old scientist's eyes showed a fierce determination. "Because if they choose to attack, they'll discover that humanity is far more than they bargained for." High above Earth, Admiral White received an unexpected message. Every screen on his bridge suddenly displayed the same simple text. "Leave. This is your only warning." The Imperial officers laughed. Captain Reed shook his head in amusement. "They can't be serious. Their weapons are centuries behind ours." But Admiral White wasn't laughing. Something about the message's simplicity bothered him. In his centuries of conquest, he'd seen countless civilizations beg, threaten, and negotiate. But this was different. "Sir," a junior officer called out, "we're detecting unusual energy readings from the planet. They're not matching any known patterns in our database." Before the Admiral could respond, Dr. Green rushed onto the bridge. The usually calm scientist looked worried. "Admiral, you need to see this." He pulled up new scanning data. "The humans, their bodies are generating some kind of quantum field. It's affecting our instruments." In the UN chamber, Dr. Miller continued his presentation. "The aliens think they're dealing with a primitive species. They don't realize that their presence has awakened something in us. Something old. Something powerful." He showed the final slide, a simulation of what their scanners had detected. Every human on Earth was now connected by an invisible network of quantum energy, growing stronger with each passing minute. "We don't need to match their technology," Dr. Miller concluded. "We just need to remember what we truly are." The UN vote was unanimous. Earth would stand united. No negotiations, no compromises, just one warning. As the alien fleet prepared their first strike, they remained unaware of the change spreading through the human population. People everywhere reported strange sensations, a feeling of connection, of power awakening. Children pointed at the sky, seeing things that shouldn't be visible to human eyes. Military personnel found themselves instinctively understanding their new quantum detection systems. The Empire had made a crucial mistake. They had judged humanity by their technology. their weapons, their visible defenses. They never thought to look deeper, to see what lay dormant in human DNA, waiting for the right moment to awaken. And now that moment had come. The warning had been sent. What happened next would depend entirely on whether the Empire was wise enough to heed it. The Imperial Council chamber sparkled with holographic displays showing Earth from every angle. 12 of the Empire's highest-ranking admirals sat around the massive black table, their faces lit by the blue glow of the projections. At the head of the table, Grand Commander Stone listened to Admiral White's report with growing irritation. "They dare to threaten us." Stone's voice echoed in the chamber. "An empire that has conquered 10,000 worlds." Admiral White stood straight, his uniform perfect despite the long hours. "The warning was quite simple, sir. Just 7 words." "Play it again," ordered Stone. The message floated in the air above them. "Leave. This is your only warning." Laughter filled the chamber. Admiral Black, commander of the Empire's largest fleet, wiped tears from his eyes. "I haven't seen such boldness since the rock people of Centaurus. Remember how quickly they fell." But Admiral White didn't join in the laughter. "Sir, there's something else. Our instruments are detecting unusual energy patterns from the planet. Nothing like we've seen before." "Enough." Stone slammed his fist on the table. "I want a demonstration. Show these humans the price of defiance. Target their moon base." The orders went out immediately. 3 Imperial battleships moved into position near Earth's moon. Their massive forms cast shadows over the small human settlement, home to 200 researchers and miners. On Earth, Dr. Miller burst into the UN Emergency Command Center. "They're moving against the moon base." His voice carried both fear and anticipation. General Roberts turned the quantum detection screens. "Time to see if our theories are correct. All personnel at Battle Station 1, prepare for quantum field activation." In a secret facility deep underground, 50 volunteers sat in circular formation. They had been chosen for their unusually strong quantum readings. Each wore a simple white suit covered in sensors. "Remember your training." Dr. Miller's voice came through their headsets. "Don't fight the connection. Let it flow naturally." Above the moon, the Imperial ships charged their main weapons. Captain Reed stood proudly on his bridge. "Beginning firing sequence. The humans will learn their place." The first shot fired. A beam of pure energy, hot as a sun's core, streaked toward the moon base. Then something impossible happened. The beam hit what looked like ripples in space itself. Like a stone thrown into a pond, the energy weapon created waves in the very fabric of reality. And behind those ripples, the moon base stood untouched. "What just happened?" Captain Reed demanded. "Sir," his sensor officer's voice shook. "The energy readings from Earth, they're off the charts. The humans, they're doing something." On Earth, in the underground facility, the 50 volunteers sat with eyes closed, their bodies glowing with a faint blue light. Through their combined consciousness, they could feel the quantum field extending, protecting their people on the moon. Admiral White watched in disbelief as 2 more shots disappeared into the strange ripples. "Full scan of the phenomenon," he ordered. Dr. Green rushed to analyze the data. "Sir, this defies everything we know about physics. They're not blocking our weapons. They're shifting the space around them into somewhere else." In the Imperial Council chamber, the laughter had stopped. Grand Commander Stone leaned forward, his face illuminated by the live feed from the moon. "Impossible," he whispered. But Admiral White knew better. In all his years of service, he'd heard whispers, legends of ancient beings who could manipulate the very fabric of space-time, beings that had vanished long ago, or perhaps had just been sleeping. "All ships, pull back to safe distance," he ordered, "and get me everything we have in our archives about Earth. Everything. No matter how old or how classified." As the Imperial ships retreated, cheers erupted in command centers across Earth. The quantum shield had worked. But Dr. Miller didn't join the celebration. He stared at his readings with a mixture of awe and concern. The power levels are still increasing, he told General Roberts quietly. What we did today, it's just the beginning. We're still waking up. The Empire had tried to teach Earth a lesson. Instead, they had learned one themselves. And as their ships withdrew to a safe distance, the real question hung in space between the two civilizations. What would the Empire do now that their superior firepower had proved useless? The underground facility buzzed with activity as Dr. Miller stared at the wall of screens before him. Each display showed different data about human quantum readings, all pointing to one incredible conclusion. Behind him, General Roberts paced the floor, his boots echoing against the metal walls. You're absolutely certain about this? The general asked, stopping to look at the main screen. Dr. Miller nodded, his tired eyes bright with excitement. The evidence is undeniable. The Imperial fleet's presence didn't just trigger our abilities. It broke a seal that's been part of human DNA for thousands of years. He pressed a button, bringing up a new display. It showed a double helix of DNA, but with strange patterns that seemed to shift and move as they watched. Look here, Dr. Miller pointed. This section of our DNA isn't random. It's a program, written in the language of life itself. Someone put it there, locked away our true potential. And now it's finally waking up. The general leaned closer to the screen. Are you saying we're not who we thought we were? We're exactly who we are, Dr. Miller replied. But we're also something more, something that's been sleeping for a very long time. In another part of the facility, the 50 volunteers who had protected the moon base sat in a circle, their minds connected through the quantum field. Their instructor, an old meditation teacher named Tom, guided them through their discoveries. Don't try to control it, he said softly. Just observe what you can do now. Let it come naturally. The air in the room seemed to ripple. Small objects began to float. Windows into other spaces opened and closed like butterflies made of light. One young volunteer reached out and touched a drop of water, freezing not just its movement but its very time. It's like remembering something we never knew we forgot, she whispered. Above Earth, the Imperial fleet maintained its distance. On the bridge of his command ship, Admiral White received a priority transmission. His face grew pale as he read the ancient text, recovered from the Empire's deepest archives. Captain, he called, his voice tight with concern. Look at this. It's a warning, written 10,000 years ago. It speaks of beings who could reshape reality itself, beings who nearly destroyed the universe in a war we can barely comprehend. Captain Reed read the text, his eyes widening. But they vanished. The records say they vanished. No, Admiral White corrected. They didn't vanish. They were sealed away. Their powers locked inside their own genetic code, passed down through generations until he looked at the blue planet on his screen. Until now. Back on Earth, Dr. Miller presented his findings to the UN Security Council. The room was packed with world leaders, all trying to understand humanity's rapidly changing reality. Project Phoenix isn't just a defense system, he explained. It's who we are. Every human on Earth carries this potential. The Empire's presence is accelerating the awakening, but it was always going to happen eventually. He showed them live feeds from around the world. Children playing with quantum fields like they were soap bubbles. Teenagers instinctively understanding principles that had baffled scientists for centuries. Adults discovering abilities that defied the laws of physics. We're not developing new technology, Dr. Miller concluded. We're remembering who we used to be. And we're becoming something new at the same time. In cities across Earth, people reported strange experiences. Workers found themselves able to sense each other's thoughts. Artists created paintings that moved with real emotions. Musicians played songs that could be seen as colors in the air. The quantum field connecting humanity grew stronger every hour. It wasn't a weapon or a shield. It was an awakening, spreading across the planet like a dawn no one had known was coming. General Roberts watched the reports flood in, understanding finally dawning on his face. So when we sent them that warning, we weren't just threatening them, Dr. Miller finished. Some part of us, some ancient memory, knew exactly what we were capable of. We were trying to prevent what's coming next. Because now the Empire faced a choice: retreat and accept humanity's awakening, or fight against an enemy that was remembering how to unmake stars. An enemy they had feared enough to lock away eons ago, now breaking free from chains they hadn't even known they wore. The true war was about to begin. The Imperial fleet hung like a string of dark pearls against the stars. 100 warships, the pride of the Empire, readied their weapons. On the command ship, Admiral White stood rigid, knowing that the next few minutes would change the course of galactic history. "All ships report ready, sir," Captain Reed announced. "Awaiting your command." Admiral White took a deep breath. The ancient warnings echoed in his mind, but orders were orders. "Begin the attack. All ships, fire on my mark." On Earth, in the underground command center, Dr. Miller watched the enemy fleet's movements on the quantum detection screens. The displays showed more than just the ship's positions. They revealed the very fabric of space twisting around the Imperial vessels. "They're coming," he said quietly. General Roberts nodded, turning to his communications officer. "Signal all quantum response teams. Execute Defense Pattern Alpha." Around the world, groups of newly awakened humans took their positions. They didn't need traditional weapons anymore. Their minds were connected through the quantum field, each person adding their strength to the whole. 3 minutes to optimal firing range, an Imperial officer announced. Admiral White raised his hand, ready to give the command that would begin the bombardment. Fire. 1,000 energy beams lanced toward Earth, each powerful enough to vaporize a city. They lit up space like new stars being born. But they never reached their targets. The quantum field surrounding Earth rippled. Reality itself seemed to bend, and every single energy beam simply vanished. Not deflected, not absorbed, but transferred somewhere else entirely. "Impossible," Captain Reed shouted. "Where did they go?" His question was answered moments later when the same energy beams appeared behind the Imperial fleet, striking 20 ships before they could react. The vessels didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist, as if they'd never been there at all. On Earth, Tom guided his group of quantum volunteers, their minds working in perfect harmony. "Remember," his calm voice steadied them, "we're not fighting with force. We're reshaping possibility itself." The Imperial fleet launched a second wave of attacks. This time, missiles and kinetic weapons joined the energy beams. But the humans were ready. Time slowed around the incoming weapons, some aged thousands of years in seconds, crumbling to dust. Others found themselves emerging from the quantum field as harmless light or sound. A few simply forgot how to exist. In orbit around Mars, Admiral White watched in horror as his mighty fleet's weapons proved useless. "This isn't a battle," he realized. "This is what the ancient texts warned us about. They don't follow the laws of physics. They rewrite them." The humans' counterattack began. It was like nothing the Empire had ever faced. Windows in space opened around Imperial ships, leading to places that shouldn't exist. Some vessels found themselves suddenly occupying the same space as their own quantum shadows, phasing out of reality. Others discovered that the space between atoms had become negotiable, their solid metal hulls turning liquid, then gas, then nothing at all. Dr. Miller monitored the quantum field's strength. "We're not just defending anymore," he told General Roberts. "Every attack they launch teaches us more about our capabilities. We're remembering faster than even I predicted." In the sky above Earth, reality itself became a battlefield. Imperial ships fired conventional weapons of unimaginable power, while humans responded with the impossible made real. Space bent. Time flowed backwards and forwards. Matter changed its mind about what it wanted to be. After just 30 minutes, half the Imperial fleet was gone. Not destroyed, simply removed from the equation of existence. Admiral White knew he had only one choice left. "All ships, emergency retreat. Get us out of this system." The remaining Imperial vessels turned to flee, their engines straining at maximum power. As they ran, their sensors recorded one last chilling sight. Humans standing on the surface of Earth, visible from space, looking up at them with eyes that glowed with quantum fire. The Empire had started this battle expecting to swat an irritating primitive species. Instead, they had awakened something ancient and powerful, something that was now fully awake and remembering why it had been put to sleep in the first place. The real question was, what would humanity do with its recovered power? The Imperial Library on Capital World was a structure of impossible size, stretching miles into the sky. In its highest tower, Grand Commander Stone stood before the ancient archives, his hands trembling as he read texts that hadn't been opened in 10,000 years. "It was all here," he whispered. "The warnings, the history, everything." The holographic displays showed star maps marked with a simple symbol, a red circle with a line through it. Earth's solar system had been marked with this symbol since before the Empire began. An ancient librarian, his skin pale from decades in the archives, pointed to another document. "This tells of the Great Sealing, sir, when the Ancient Ones had to be stopped." On the screens around them, reports kept coming in. Half the Imperial attack fleet, gone. Not destroyed, but erased from existence. The other half fled back to Empire space, carrying tales that seemed impossible. Meanwhile on Earth, Dr. Miller stood in a vast underground chamber, surrounded by floating symbols that seemed to write themselves in the air. As humanity's powers grew, so did their understanding. "We were everywhere once," he explained to General Roberts and the assembled world leaders. "Our ancestors spread across thousands of worlds. They didn't need ships. They simply fought themselves across space." He waved his hand, and the symbols formed into images of ancient civilizations. "But we grew too powerful, too quickly. Some wanted to reshape the universe itself. Others fought to stop them. The war nearly destroyed everything." In the Imperial Library, Stone read the same history from the other side. "The Ancient Ones fought with powers we can barely comprehend. They didn't destroy planets. They rewrote their histories so they never existed. They didn't kill their enemies. They changed the past so their enemies were never born." The librarian nodded solemnly. "The universe itself began to crack under the strain of their wars. That's when the wisest among them made a choice." Back on Earth, Dr. Miller showed the final piece of the puzzle. In the floating symbols, a pattern emerged, the same pattern they'd found in human DNA. "They didn't want to destroy us," he said softly. "So they sealed our powers away inside our own genetic code, made us forget what we were, let us evolve again, naturally, hoping we'd learn wisdom before we remembered our strength." Around the world, humans were discovering new abilities every hour. But this time, something was different. With the knowledge of their past came understanding of their responsibility. A child in Africa looked at a dying tree and restored its life force, not by changing reality, but by helping it remember how to be healthy. A farmer in India helped his crops grow by singing to the quantum field, working with nature instead of forcing it to change. In the Imperial Library, Stone watched real-time footage of Earth. "They're not using their powers to conquer or destroy," he said, surprised. "They're healing things." The ancient librarian smiled. Perhaps that was the point of the sealing. Not just to stop them, but to give them a chance to learn a better way. Dr. Miller gathered the world's leaders. "We have a choice to make," he told them. "We can repeat the mistakes of our ancestors, use these powers to dominate and control. Or we can do something new." In orbit around Earth, the quantum field had changed. Instead of a barrier, it became a beacon, sending out pulses of energy that carried a simple message to the stars: "Peace, if you want it." General Roberts watched the quantum readings with amazement. "We could crush the Empire now, push them back to their core worlds, take everything they have." "We could," Dr. Miller agreed. "But that's what our ancestors would have done. And look where it got them." He gestured to the DNA pattern, the seal that had locked away their powers. "We have a chance to write a new story." In the Imperial Library, Grand Commander Stone made his decision. He opened a channel to Earth, his voice carrying across the light years. "People of Earth," he began, "we have much to discuss." The universe held its breath, waiting to see if humanity had truly learned from its ancient mistakes, or if history was about to repeat itself in an even more devastating way. The next few moments would decide the fate of galaxies. 1 year after the Empire's failed invasion, Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The once blue planet now glowed with a subtle golden light visible from space, a manifestation of the quantum field that connected all humanity. In the rebuilt United Nations chamber, now floating above New York on a platform of pure energy, Dr. Miller addressed representatives from both Earth and the Empire. His hair had turned completely white, but his eyes sparkled with renewed purpose. "Today marks the beginning of the Galactic Council," he announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "A new form of governance, based not on power, but on understanding." Admiral White, now serving as the Empire's chief diplomat, nodded in agreement. The past year had taught the Empire much about humility and hope. "We feared what humanity might become," he said. "We never imagined you would choose this path." Around Earth, the changes were everywhere. Cities had transformed, with buildings that responded to thoughts and streets that could rearrange themselves to meet people's needs. But unlike the chaos many had feared, humanity had found balance. In what was once the Sahara Desert, a young girl walked through a blooming garden that stretched to the horizon. She hadn't forced the desert to change. She had helped it remember when it was green, awakening ancient seeds that had slept beneath the sand for millennia. In orbit, the quantum gates pulsed with soft light. These weren't weapons or defenses, but bridges, connecting Earth to other worlds that wanted to learn, to grow, to understand. The Empire's planets, one by one, had chosen to join this new network of cooperation. "We were wrong about them," Grand Commander Stone told his council back on Capital World. "They had the power to destroy us, to take everything we had. Instead, they offered to teach us. The quantum abilities that had awakened in humanity hadn't led to war or conquest. Instead, they had sparked a renaissance of healing and creation. The ancient powers were being used not to dominate, but to restore." Dr. Miller walked through one of the quantum gates, stepping instantly from Earth to a dying world on the edge of Empire space. Behind him came a team of humans, their eyes glowing with golden light. "We can help," he told the world's desperate inhabitants, "not by changing what you are, but by helping you remember what you could be." Together, humans and aliens joined minds through the quantum field. They didn't force the planet to heal. They reminded it how to heal itself. Oceans remembered how to be clean. Atmospheres remembered how to be clear. Life remembered how to thrive. Back on Earth, General Roberts stood in the new Global Defense Center. But instead of weapons, the screen showed healing operations across the galaxy. "We thought we were preparing for war," he said with a smile. "We were actually preparing to become doctors for the universe." The Empire's ships still patrolled space, but their role had changed. They weren't conquerors anymore. They were explorers, peacekeepers, learners. Many had human teachers aboard, showing them how to sense the quantum field, how to work with reality rather than trying to dominate it. In the Imperial Library, the ancient warnings about Earth had been moved to a new section. Historical lessons. Next to them stood new records, documenting humanity's choice to use their reawakened powers for healing rather than harm. A child on a distant Empire world looked up at her teacher, a human woman with gentle eyes. "Can you show me how to do it?" she asked. "How to help things grow?" The teacher smiled. "I can show you how to remember what you already know. We all have this power. Humans just remembered it first." And in deep space, at the edge of known territory, a new kind of signal was spreading. Not a warning anymore, but an invitation. Earth had become a beacon of hope, proving that great power didn't have to lead to destruction. Dr. Miller, standing once again in the UN chamber, looked out at the assembled representatives of 100 worlds. Our ancestors sealed away their powers because they couldn't control them, he said. We unlocked them because we finally learned how to use them wisely. The quantum field pulsed with the combined hopes of billions. Humanity had faced its test, not just of power, but of wisdom. And in choosing to heal rather than harm, to teach rather than dominate, they had changed not just their own destiny, but the destiny of all life in the galaxy. The story of Earth's rise would be told for generations to come, not as a tale of conquest, but as the moment when the universe learned a better way.